SummerSlam 2023 has come and gone, and to me, the show can best be described as a missed classic. A show that was good, not great, but should have been better and gone down as one of the stronger SummerSlams. With this show, I felt like something was missing. The matches on here ranked from okay to good, with nothing in the classic or spectacular category. There was no big return to bump up the show. It was a show that had ebbs and flows, and to me, lacked that next gear that a Big Four show needs. I feel like I'm in the minority with this because I've seen a lot of people's opinions online, and the word masterclass and perfect is attached to it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This show underwhelmed me and probably was one of the weaker shows of the year. I can't in good faith say that it was bad because it wasn't bad, but I don't think it lived up to the hype and potential that it had on paper. The event kicked off with Logan Paul and Ricochet, and this was heavily built on going viral and having a viral moment within the match, but we didn't get it. I feel as though we put large expectations on this match from the hop because essentially the majority of us thought that this was going to be a spot fest with at least one larger than life highlight reel moment that was going to be replayed until the end of time, but it wasn't. Nonetheless, it was a really strong and fun match that picked up the longer it went. What I really liked about this match was it made sense. Rather than Logan Paul and Ricochet just doing spots, it was a more traditional match with a defined heel and face dynamic while still incorporating cool spots inside the match. Instead of an 8 to 9 minute sprint, we got an 18-minute marathon. Paul was taunting Samantha Irvin, trolling Ricochet by hitting the running power slam like Braun Strowman. Cool spots in this match, from Spanish flies to buckshot lariats, hurricane neckbreaker from the top rope, and a ridiculous DDT counter. It was an athletic display from two super athletic guys. The finish came when Paul was handed brass knuckles, and that was it. Michael Cole said it best: a great matchup, but the ending sucked. I thought this was a really good opening match, but I was waiting for that viral moment. Didn't get it. Nonetheless, a strong open to this show. The next match on this card was my favorite match from this event, and that was Brock Lesnar versus Cody Rhodes. I know, what the heck did I just say? I love the story that they told in this match. Early on, Cody goes right after Brock but gets met with suplexes, and the story is Cody is trying to climb this mountain and take down this mammoth somehow, some way, but he just isn't a match for him. At every turn, it was Cody trying to avoid Brock's offense. They brawl to the outside where Cody gets Brocked in front of his mom. Brock sends Cody to the outside and tries to take a countout win. Cody comes in at 6, and this becomes a constant in this match, with Brock telling Cody to save himself. Brock dumps Cody out for a 4th time. Cody comes back in. Cody then gets hit with an F5 on the floor, but gets back in at 9. F5 through the table, and somehow, some way, Cody is up again. They then go to the outside. Cody just shoves Brock into the ring post to try to get his stamina bar down as he's taking out the final boss. And then he hits him with steel steps, which I'm pretty sure is a DQ. Disaster kick followed by a Cody cutter, followed by a top rope Cody cutter. This sequence was awesome, no pun intended. So much adrenaline inside Ford Field. Both of them fight out of a Kimura lock, 3 straight crossroads, and that's all she wrote. Really fun match, and the best match that these two have had in their trilogy. I actually didn't mind any of them. Some people really didn't like them. I thought each of them was something different, and they weren't really that bad. And again, what I liked about this was paced out differently. Essentially, it was Brock telling Cody to stay down and quit, or else he's gonna have mercy on Cody, but Cody just didn't quit. One of the things that wasn't clearly defined was why these two were beefing, but after the match, you could kind of make it out. These two shook hands, and it was kind of like a "you're ready" sort of deal. Like, yeah, you're cut out for this. You passed the test. This felt decisive and conclusive, so Cody's now been endorsed by Cena and Brock at this point. This moment was unplanned, as we later found out. Not a classic by any means. Nothing on this show was, in my opinion, but solid and entertaining. The Slim Jim Battle Royal was alright. It was solely here for LA Knight. It's a Battle Royal. If you've seen one, you've pretty much seen them all, and I gotta say, ever since I got to Detroit at the airport, the amount of yas I heard, the amount of LA Knight shirts I saw, little kids on the street saying yeah or let me talk to ya. This guy is a money printing machine. They gotta strap the rocket to him because he is awesome. The LA Knight pop was nuclear. We got an Omos return. I am not an Homo sapien. I did not rise. It's your standard battle royal. Of course, Omos has the entire field comes to take out the tall guy spot. There's a rolling stunner into a skull-crushing finale on Chad Gable by The Miz and Waller. Looked really cool. The final two were Sheamus and LA Knight. LA Knight wins it. This man has all the tools. They cannot miss with him. The next thing was a miss though, and that was the MMA rules match between Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey. It's hard to get a worked MMA fight to work. I thought that these two were going to execute. The thing with these is it's got to look good and also have the audience into it. It's got to be fast paced and look brutal. And it didn't do either of that. The crowd was breaking out into boring chants, people were leaving to go get food and go to the bathroom, and this match killed the momentum of the crowd. They were hot for the first 3 matches and nobody cared here. If they would have came into this with heavy hits and big reversals, it would have been faster and maybe it would have worked. By the time they got going, they lost the crowd, and it's now reported that these two had issues with creative over the specifics of this match. Shayna won, and this was a huge low point on the show. I had higher expectations because of how they built this thing up. What they were trying to do just didn't land with the audience. They want to see slams, they want to see wrestling, they want to see big moments, especially the WWE audience. They want all the bells and whistles. Maybe the fight pit would have worked better. This definitely knocks the show down a few points in my opinion, and I feel as though this was a front-loaded show with the back half not delivering as much. Next up was one that I think a lot of us had very high expectations of. 2 big meaty men slapping meat, Drew McIntyre and Gunther. The crowd still hadn't recovered in this match, and by the time they did, the match was over. It was hard hitting, it was brutal, it was probably 80 to 85% of what I expected from these two. I expected a little bit more, and I feel like it didn't get into that next gear of violence and brutality that this match needed. The show needed that one match that was a show stealer and really brought it to that next level, and this could have been that match, but I don't think it was. Again, by no means was it bad. It was good. You could even argue that it was great, but it needed 3 to 5 more minutes. It needed that next gear that Drew and Gunther can certainly get to. It was building to that, but by that time it was over. What we got next was what I think was objectively the match of the night because of the near falls and because of the shenanigans. 7 years in the making, Finn Bálor versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship. Finn comes out with the word 7 on his shoulder to represent the 7-year itch that he just can't scratch, and then the king of trolling comes out wearing his vest from 2016. I can't be the only one that wishes he wore the rest of the gear too. Match starts off with a brawl between these two, back and forth and back and forth. Bálor just works on Rollins' arm for the first bit of the match. Rollins then goes for 3 straight suicide dives to the outside. We get a callback to their last SummerSlam match where Bálor gets to revenge, hitting the same powerbomb to the outside into the barricade. Great counters in this match. It was fast, which I really liked. There's some really good sequences. Finn kicks out of a pedigree. Out comes Mr. Money in the Bank, Damian Priest. Rollins then kicks out of a pedigree after an argument with Priest. Bálor gets hit with a stomp but kicks out. Coup de grace, no. Priest leaves the Money in the Bank in the ring, stomp onto it, Rollins retains. Was it a flat finish? Not really. I thought it was fun and gave you the shenanigans that makes things, well, fun. I do think that Finn Bálor winning here would have made sense. They're teasing the slow dissension in the Judgment Day. Good match. These two worked well together. Next was something that theoretically should have worked well, and that was the women's triple threat match between Asuka, Bianca Belair, and Charlotte Flair. This one, I describe it as them trying to do things, but the crowd not feeling what they were doing. There were some sloppy points in this match, which just felt weird. I also gotta say that WWE's got this thing where they just mask a mediocre women's build with a good or great match. Feel like that's not being called out enough. Charlotte was late to some spots, so the other two were just kind of hanging there for Charlotte to hit her cue. There was some strong action early on with the multi-woman spots. There's also some parts that look really clunky and not as smooth as they should. By no means the epic that it could and probably should have been. I gotta give props to Bianca Belair though. She got thrown over the top rope and was selling her right knee, screaming in pain. She had everyone fooled because the doctors came out and were attending to her. It looked like a real injury. She then comes back in, 450 does nothing. Bianca then sells her left knee, survives 20 seconds in the figure 4/8. Bianca rolls up Asuka and wins the WWE Women's Championship, only to go on to have one of the shortest women's title reigns in the championship's history, because out comes Io Sky to cash in the Money in the Bank, and this was such a feel-good moment. 1 year later after her debut on the main roster, here she was, the new WWE Women's Champion. Michael Cole was in his bag with this call, saying from the world of stardom to the top of the world. Was this expected? Yeah. Great moment nonetheless. I didn't dig this match so much. Again, it was alright, nothing spectacular. When I got home, I watched it back. I bumped it up a little bit because they were really trying. It's not their fault that the crowd just wasn't into it. And here we were. Now it was time for Tribal Combat, both the undisputed WWE Universal title and the title for Tribal Chief on the line. I said in the last video that one thing I felt like this needed was exploring Jay's story a little bit more. It was mentioned here and there, and we got a little bit of a reference to it on SmackDown, but never really the spill your heart out kind of segment that I feel like it needed. Nonetheless, this came about after Jay pinned Roman at Money in the Bank and then wanted to take on Roman after Roman and Solo took out Jimmy Uso. Y'all may not like this, but I thought this was a weak main event. This main event was slow, very few big spots, lots of pre-match fluff, especially since it went 36 minutes. I feel like they didn't pack enough into it. Lesnar and Reigns last year, though it was a different stipulation, did more in 23 minutes. This could have had some time shaved off of it. Also, Tribal Combat just felt like an average no DQ match. It wasn't anything different. If you watch this channel and have been for a period of time, I think you guys know me well enough that I don't just come on here and say crap for the sake of saying it to get a reaction out of you guys. When I enjoy something, I tell you guys, but here I gotta be honest, I did not feel this main event. Even when I got home from the show, I rewatched it and I really tried to like it. It didn't hit. The match wasn't the worst thing ever, I'm not saying that, but it wasn't great. I just felt like it was dull. Both guys have points in this match where they just go after each other with kendo sticks. Jay creates this pool of steel chairs which Roman powerbombs him into. Roman gets Samoan dropped onto the table from the apron. We get a great callback with Jay bringing back the leather strap. They brawl into the crowd when Solo arrives. I thought that family couldn't interfere. The spike spear combo to Jay goes wrong when Solo gets pulled in the way of the spear, so this sets in motion Solo's eventual turn on Roman. Jay puts Solo through the announce table with a splash. Eventually, as Jay is possibly about to win, Jimmy returns, pulls him out of the ring, super kick to Jay. Jimmy betrays his brother, spear through a table, and that was your finish. Not for a second did I think that Jay was going to win this. The suspension of disbelief just wasn't there. The talking point was, of course, the turn from Jimmy, so let's talk about it. So initially when this happened, I was of the crowd that this makes no sense, that this was a swerve done for the sake of a swerve, and I still do maintain the second half of that opinion, that it feels like they're just trying to do stuff so that they can squeeze out every bit of the Bloodline story. I do think that people will come around and start watching again because every time we doubt these guys, they somehow continue to make it better. However, they have planted the seeds to this turn on WWE TV. At the end of the day, the Usos have done everything as a tag team. I guess it's time for them to tell their story. It'll be a classic story of jealousy, or you're only good when I'm here, or you went for the title instead of caring about me sort of deal. I'm going to give that story a chance before I judge it, because if it has actual motives and actual reasoning, then okay. But I do feel like it was backwards in some respect. They're just there to milk the turn and have Jimmy and Jay do their story for the next couple months. But they really got to be careful with this. They can't just keep adding unnecessary and sometimes illogical chapters to the story that this story just could have done without. Bloodline fatigue is a very real thing that's happening, and I felt it after the show. I still understand that this is going to do well. It'll have people hooked. It does have the potential. I mean, the promo package alone is going to be something special. Will these two make it worthwhile? Hopefully. It's still going to do good ratings. At the end of the day, it gives you something to talk about. And while I understand that, doesn't mean I necessarily agree with it. We're allowed to like and dislike parts of the story, and this one I'm not really feeling. One thing I do feel is though when Roman loses the titles, there's a great story to tell of him handing over the lei. The way he told Jay, if you win this, I hand this to you. If it ends up being Solo, that would be a great way to create a new star down the line. As for Tribal Combat, it was a miss for me. I don't remember much aside from the table spot and the turn. Even the crowd at Ford Field was just like, oh, that's it. The pacing of this show was odd. There's points where they could have shaved some time off and given it to other matches, or maybe cut some matches completely. Overall, this show was very standard, nothing too special if I'm being honest. Like the title says, it was a missed classic. Why? Because I feel like some matches just didn't deliver to their billing and something just felt missing. I still can't put my finger on it. Drew versus Gunther was close to being an all-time classic. Both women's matches were misses to me. The main event was middling, and again, it just kind of felt like it happened. The show wasn't bad, but it didn't feel like the number 2 show of the year. The crowd was objectively just dead at points. I don't know, man. Maybe the moments were just missing. Maybe I'm being too harsh on it, but I'm not going to say it was great or fantastic just because everyone else is saying it. I thought it was a middling pay-per-view with nothing spectacular or nothing that I'm going to ever rewatch for my own enjoyment. But on paper, the show just should have been better. We'll agree to disagree if that's the case. Let me know what you guys thought of this show in the comments below. What was good, what was bad, what you liked, what you disliked. I'll catch you guys in the next one.